Welcome to No Dice, a listener's digest and supplementary program to the Dice with Death podcast. I'm your host, Ollie Bateman, and I'm joined by a partially absent parent who calls upon thunder to vanquish his foes and make sure that his adopted kids don't pull another blunder. It's the Ara Cochrane cleric, still with no canonical last name. It's Ark!
It's never going to have a last name. Never going to have a last name.
Really, never? Never going to have a last name?
Never.
Okay, as you can hear, that's Jamie Powis. It's not Ark. We did ask Ark to come today, but it is Jamie Powis. I am also joined by an ice knife caster, an interracial matchmaker who can do-si-do her way through a bar and down a blackberry mead with no chaser. It's everyone's favourite non-gingered orphan. It's Zakaya Rubbledusk.
Everyone's favourite orphan. Can you imagine if somebody announced your entrance on a game show like that?
It only occurred to me the other day that Zakaya is essentially an orphan, so I thought it was a perfect rhyme for her to introduce her on this episode today.
Absolutely.
I'm joined by a turnbuckle ascender who headbutts with glee anything that gets in his way. Unless he's dressed as a tree. It's Titus, the Thunder Bastard Caligari!
Hoorah, hoorah, hoorah! Yes, get in!
You have made it a habit to headbutt a lot of things, haven't you?
That's my calling card.
It is your calling card. What is No Dice? I hear you cry. This is the show where we take a break from our regularly scheduled adventures in the solar system of Parlay to informally look back over the last 4 episodes of the Dice with Death podcast. Think of it as an audibly warm, relaxed bubble bath, filling your brain hole with the D&D tales of Ark, Zakaya, and Titus. Of course, it's Jamie, Adam, and Amy, really, but if I could ask every single one of you just to join me in this audible bath as we chat episodes 5, 6, 7, and 8. Did everybody like my intro, my analogies?
Yeah,
there?
no, the water's great. Thanks for having us in. Is it Radox? What you got in here?
Oh yeah, it's a bit of imperial leather. That's what I'm going for.
Oh, classy.
Super bubbly. Talking of keeping it clean, we never do on this show. Adam, Titus absolutely destroyed a solar naval officer by skidding him along the ground in episode 4. Let's just kick off with that, shall we? Your absolute bloody and disgusting turn of events where you destroyed this man's body after turning him upside down.
Yeah, I rereading the notes for this, I genuinely forgot that happened. I thought, oh yeah, we're pretty bunch of bastards, really, aren't we? I couldn't get over that, and the description about just using him as effectively as corpse as a test to make sure there's no more traps knocking about. I suppose it's what he would have wanted.
He died how he lived.
What, being turned upside down and having pictures of his nan and family shaken out of him?
I know. Didn't we all fight for his possessions? Weren't we all like, oh, I'll get the picture of his nan. I'll get the key ring.
Yeah.
Just so you know, I do have the key ring in my possession. So I'm going to use that at some point. I think you got Amy, you got a voucher for...
I did, for a Big Mac meal.
Big Mac, yeah.
You wanted chicken nuggets, not available. It was a first choice bus pass that was about to expire. So you can get a Big Mac meal somewhere in this fantasy world.
Maybe in Iliad. I mean, it's the first sort of town we've come to. They must at least have a Mackey's. Even if it's just a drive-through, I think we should have a look for one next time.
The thing I love the most is obviously it's his first bus pass as well. So he must be like 17, and yet we still took all photos of his family and desecrated his corpse. So there we go.
Yeah, he was the bodyguard to the captain of the guard, so I don't think it's completely a loss. I don't think you'll be. I don't think you'll be going to prison for injuring or maiming a 17-year-old. He was corrupt. Let's just say that he is part of the Solar Navy, and he's not a good guy. Let's just say that. But yeah, episode 4, you checked the warehouse for traps. You threw a cog that Ark cast light on. No traps. You in this episode, you really thought I was going to try and do you over just to get in this warehouse.
To be fair, I'm constantly suspicious of you, and well, when we get to the later episodes, I'm completely justified by the fact that George R.R. Martin apparently takes over this fucking podcast and goes, Zach's dead. You've been shivved, you weren't looking, you were asleep, you slept for too long, and you're dead. I just feel like that every single episode. So I want to make sure there's a lot of stuff we're gonna get into, but like that was end of episode 5, where all I had to do was jump, and I was like, oh yeah, obviously I jumped with all of us together, but I was like, I really don't want to be the guy who has to be responsible for all of us dying by like, you didn't check, there's rocks underneath you, dickhead.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that actually, Ollie, because that episode 4 is like where it kind of gets, to use a technical term, totes a mosh. And I think we sort of started discovering more about each other and our backstories, and it was so cool how it all interlinked. But I think there was one moment there that sometimes the curtain that like Ollie kind of works behind as like the D&D, the kind of the magician that sort of weaves this story, sometimes it kind of creeps up a teeny little bit and you get a little peek into something that maybe Ollie didn't plan for. And you're so good at genuinely being a DM that we never really see that. But there was one moment during Ark's flashback where it's the bit where he like stabs the consul with the sword, and you hear in Ollie's voice he's like really blown away in a great way. He's just like, wow, okay, that's cool, did not see that coming. And I was gonna ask you, Ollie, like what other moments like so far have you kind of had that reaction, or have you sort of thought, oh okay, didn't see that coming, but that's cool?
Oh, we definitely touched on this in the last No Dice, you talking to Squiddy, like to start with, like casting Speak with Animals and just going ahead and doing that, like Titus doing a backflip for no other reason apart from trying to one-up you. I know we keep coming back to the backflip, but those are the moments that really stick out in my mind. I think the most recent one of all of those was Ark working on the sign. Was Ark like taking time away while you're all camped together to like make this exquisitely made with a brilliant sleight of hand check to like make this elaborate sign to try and get your relationship back on track again. That was like, because a peek behind the screen, me and Jamie had spoken about that off mic, you know, like months ago, absolutely months ago. And I it just caught me sideways because I was like, oh God, he's going to do it. He's actually going to. And I was like, oh, so many emotional tangents are going to come off from here. So yeah, that was the most recent one that really like sent me sideways a bit and had me thinking, oh God, how do I get through this? But you guys were so good at doing, having that terribly awful conversation that you had to have. A question from me on that actually is, Jamie, as heartbreaking as that conversation was, did it go how you hoped? Like, had you imagined how that was going to happen, or was it just like, what is Ark feeling right now, and what can he do?
You know, it could have been a bit more from me, a bit more succinct and stuff, and it might have been a bit awkward. But I think that's probably the kind of feelings you would have if you were doing it in real life, probably like a million times more. So, yeah, I'm quite happy at how it went, really. I think the Ark is concerned for Zakaiya because he doesn't want to do this whole revenge plan. And I think, he just doesn't want it. He just doesn't want it to do it, really.
It's clear from the way that you immediately interject and say, revenge, do you know about my God? Revenge leads you down a path that is destructive. It's like a tornado. It comes in, destroys everything and goes. Amy, as Zakaiya, what made you go to revenge immediately?
Oh, maybe it was I just finished. I think in my head, when I listened to it back, I was like, oh, Ames, you just finished The Last of Us 2. That was what was going through your brain at that moment. But I do think it's... for me, it's very much like the youth of Zakaiya. Like, Zak is she isn't particularly wise, and I don't think she necessarily has had the life experience to realise that there are negative consequences to something like that. And she's very driven and very emotionally raw and sort of fueled by anger and a lot of, especially because of who she is as well, because she is a half elf. And, you know, throughout most of her life, she's been looked at differently. She carries a lot of sort of vengeance and a lot of bitterness. And I don't think she's got to the ripe old age yet where she's realised how to let some of that baggage go. So I think that is kind of where that comes from when she thinks, right, well, the answer to my problems is an eye for an eye. And I loved the idea of like the rain coming down, and I mean Titus in the background like snoring and scratching his bollocks and like rolling over. That was absolutely genius.
I like that as the sort of reflection of my two different facets of my characters. The one part where, because I've thought about how I was going to have my relationship to the other two characters, and I think I sort of envisaged it in a different way. And then when I was actually put in that scenario, and I basically was just to Jamie, basically like, hey man, like you need to like have a little word with her about this sort of thing. That was just a sort of an impulse of like, and we talked about this on the last No Dice. The more and more we do this, the episode starts and you go like, my character does this, and by about half an hour in, you're like, I'm doing this because you know, especially with, you know, the backstories and the fact. I think I assumed, maybe this is because of you know, the fact we've just done fun little campaigns, you know, with detail, but with less like background necessarily. You think it's just going to be going from battle to battle to battle and achieving these objectives, whether they be the objective of that specific episode or 4 episodes down the line or whatever. I think you're just like, oh yeah, I know where this is going, but in reality, you have to act. You can only react the way you actually would. But then also, I like the fact that I have that, but then I also think, oh, it's all getting a bit serious here. Right, I'll just go in the middle of a really emotional moment on one of the most recent episodes.
That's one of my favourite things, though, that balance. I think that's really hard to do. I think there's a reason that, like, sitcoms, you know, that manage to tread that line between, like, bittersweet and hilarious work so well, because it's difficult to make people think, oh, God, that's a really sad thing. You know, this is quite intense, like, emotionally. And then something like that happens. And even when I was listening to it, it was perfectly timed, I thought.
Talking of Titus's well-timed interruptions for things, especially in the episode we just put out, episode 8, in the middle of Titus's vision, when these mind shadows were swarming around him and they completely turned his forearm to dust. And Adam, you made a remark about Hans Moleman from The Simpsons.
Yeah.
And then 30 seconds later, once your sword had careened to the left and stabbed through Zakaya's heart, and you went, "Oh, don't think the Hans Moleman reference was quite warranted there." But that's so good because you know you're living in the moment and you're going, "What would Titus think right here?" And then that realization of, shit, this is really serious. There are stakes here.
Do you know what I've had as well? More recently, I think it started. It was most prevalent for me on episode 5. Oh fuck! I really don't want my character or any of our characters to die. Like when you were like, "Oh yeah, you're what was it? What was the check that I did on Amy's character?"
Oh,
and then
right.
you were like,
"Yeah." So it was.
Yes, medicine check.
It was a medicine check. Yeah. So essentially, with a bit of background to that, you have, and this is going to sound terribly lewd, but you have never in your life touched Zakaya before, and
No.
you are not someone who, as a wrestler, is medically trained in any way, shape or form. So the first time that you ever go to do a medicine check on somebody, you don't know what to do. You're like, where do I put my hands? What am I doing? Am I trying to do CPR? Like, what is going on? So yeah, you were rolling with disadvantage, and if you got it bad, that was 2 death saves out the gate. Boom. And then 1 failed death save, and that's it.
yeah, it was the fact of that's not even my character. You know, if my character dies because of me being an idiot, I can handle that. But just like, oh, sorry about that, Amy. Create a new character. Just throw that one out in the rubbish. But like coming back to episode 5, I distinctly remember having a moment early on when we're fighting that plane walk in episode 5, and I think I mentioned this to you, Ollie, when we had a little separate chat. I can't remember what it was about, but I remember chatting to you and going, yeah, there was a moment when I was thinking, do I sacrifice myself here for the team? And it was such a sudden like, oh, I guess this is it for Titus. And then obviously that didn't happen, and episode 5 actually turned out to be my favourite episode that we've done so far. But I'm incredibly biased, and we'll get into in due course why that probably is. But going along, and we're doing all these fun things, and then, as I said, with Ollie at the helm, you could be dead the next time we come back to this podcast.
Well, going into episode 5, obviously that's where we encounter Planewalker at the end of episode 4. But I want to make a real quick pledge to you guys, because when I was listening to it back today, my mum does this thing, right, where she just adds like an S to a word that doesn't need an S. So, for example, like Primark, the shop, she'll be like, oh, I'm just going to Primark's. And it goes right through me, and I'm just like, Mum, it's Primark. Listen back to all the episodes, lads. Every single time I say Planeswalker. Every single damn time. And I'm like, oh my God. Like, I think it's a Magic the Gathering thing. Maybe that's where it's come from. I've never played, but I've had to learn about it for work. So, But I promise I will say Planewalker every time going forward. Because I was just cringing every time. I was like, and then we saw Planeswalker. And I was like, oh.
It's really funny because the first time you ever said it, I was immediately like, oh, I need to correct Amy on that. And I was like, no, I don't. This is Sakaya. This just plays into your character. But every time I get the edit from Jamie, I go, oh, she said it again. She said Planeswalker. There's another episode where you're like, oh, what have I called my mum and dad? I can't remember what I named them.
Yeah, I was just like, oh God, Ames, no. But yeah, facing Planewalker in the basement. That's the moment where I think the stakes went up, not just because of the emotional value to everyone, because you've just seen a lot more of their backstories. And I kind of wanted to ask people about which part of someone's backstory they most are intrigued by. But like, you had all that exposition, and then you suddenly had this really intense encounter where we could so easily have died because you put us up against something that was really, really scary.
We had no chance either. If we'd have just stuck around and had that fight, we're all dead, aren't we?
Absolutely, yeah.
I mean, Jamie knows better than anybody else because I had to send him the stats.
I remember.
We did touch on this in the last episode of No Dice as well, but yeah, I sent the stats to Jamie, and he was quite rightly saying we're fucked.
So, like, when Planewalker hit you, Adam, for the first time, he must have rolled. So him, I don't know, might be a she, I don't know.
He, she,
rolled
they,
really,
them, who knows?
Them. They must have rolled really badly. Like, really badly to hit you so low. I was like, okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, another peek behind the screen there. He rolled absolutely like dog shit because I sent you all the deets and you were like, oh yeah, I said this is the minimum he can hit for. And it was like, oh, okay, I must have fucked up here. Like, he can roll less than that. And I think I forgot to roll a couple of dice. So you're very lucky there.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Too late now.
No take backs. No take backs.
Let's retcon the last 5 episodes, guys. Let's start again. Let's go back to that fight.
Absolutely not.
Talking of fights, though, episode 5, Titus, Adam. How was it, like, fighting as wrestler Titus, like wrestling in an actual ring for the first ever time?
It's the most fun I've had doing this podcast, and I've enjoyed all of them, but I don't feel uncomfortable doing all the other stuff, but I tell you what, I was in my zone there. And then when Jamie came and got involved, I was like, it's like when someone goes, oh, it's the Royal Rumble this weekend. And I'm like, yeah, boy, let's sit down. Let me talk to you about it for half an hour. It's combining my like 2 favourite things, D&D and wrestling. I just loved it. And obviously, having someone like you, Ollie, who has an experience of it, so I'm not having to like baby step you through it, and just basically saying, oh yeah, like I go up to the top rope and do a Macho Man Randy Savage elbow, or I'm doing a kip up here, or I'm doing whatever. Then just leading Jamie's character and Jamie through doing a finisher to kill a man. I've probably listened to that episode about 3 or 4 times, and specifically that bit is just, I really enjoyed it. So I realise it's incredibly self-indulgent to say that's my favourite episode, but just I feel it's the most confident I've felt you know, when they're there going, are you going to jump, or, you know, do we release the shark or whatever? I'm so like, oh, I don't want to do the wrong thing here. Whereas in that situation, I'm like, I know my character's got the correct abilities, and I'm in my comfort zone, considering that's what I talk about ridiculously on a daily basis as part of my job. I talked on the last No Dice about cutting a promo and sort of living the dream there. Well, this was like the other side of it. You know, I've been in fights before, but in a legitimate wrestling ring, the moment you mentioned that, and I was like, well, we're going to be stepping in there and we're going to be having it out with whoever fancies it. So I had so much fun. The bloke, I think it's so funny, the bloke who's just sort of watching. You know, you've got Amy in a cardboard box. You've got Jamie sort of getting involved. And then you've got a bloke who's sort of like, yeah. Not sure if he's into it or not, or whose side he's on. I had so much fun
because you knocked both of those guards out. You were like, but you know, bulldog, and then I can't remember if it was like you turn. I think in the episode you were like, I turn to like, you know, the crowd that's not there, and I was like, oh, hold on, one of them gets up. Yes, woo, yeah. Like, just you need an audience, don't you? And if it's not Zakaya and Ark in this situation, then why not have it be a corrupt solar naval officer watching you?
Because Zakaya's thought she was going to be Solid Snake,
God.
and then couldn't get out of the box.
that literally was probably the moment that I felt the most regret for an action that I'd done. Like, we've all kind of had that thing where we've gone, this will be great. Oh my God, this will be mind blowing. I mean, the backflip was a funny example of that. I felt like the Solid Snake box thing was just like, you really tried to do something cool. It completely 180, like 360 in your face. Oh my God, it brings, when I listened to that again, I was like, oh God, the expectation versus reality there was so bad.
So, I had the same moment in that exact episode as well, where I genuinely thought if I pinned this guy, it would end the match. And basically, so I thought, I'll finish this. I know what to do. And everyone laughed. I was like, oh no, I do not know wrestling that well.
Well, don't feel ashamed, not to go off on a tangent, but if you'll allow me this, there was a Royal Rumble once that ended, I believe, that was the finish, wasn't it? Yeah. But with someone attempting to pin someone, which isn't the rules of a Royal Rumble, it's over the top rope, both feet are hitting the floor, attempted to pin someone. The person he was trying to pin was about a 400-pound sumo wrestler who basically kicked out and effectively press slammed them over the top rope. So you that's their job. That was in the middle of, like, you just like, oh, okay, I suppose I'll get involved. That is their job, and they screwed up that badly, and there's no shame on you, mate.
It was Ark, first of all, throwing the shield that you had. It was like throwing the shield towards the ring, and then it just hitting the side of the ring, and then going, I'm just going to crawl in the ring and get involved in this.
The bit where he lifts up his like feathery wing, oh God, that was amazing. When he just grabs his wing and like thrusts it in the air, that was a proper nice bonding moment.
Nice. Oh, it was so good.
You guys have had some great bonding moments over these episodes, like all being in close proximity to each other. You know, the first one being, I think it was episode 3, where you all, you get Ark's chains off of his back, and you know you're camping in the woods before Zakaya's getting shot and all this stuff. It's been 8 episodes now. Do you all feel like you're a unit that just like moves as one? Do you all feel like as characters you really know each other yet, or is that am I jumping the gun there? Like, do you trust all of the people that are around you playing in this campaign?
I did write down, actually, like one of my notes was that I think it was probably about episode 4 or 5 onwards, the distinction between my friends and fictional characters was definitely blurring, and that line broke down quite a lot. So I stopped seeing, like, for a while, you know, because you're still getting used to these new characters and these new sort of fictional people, I kept thinking of Jamie whenever I was thinking of something Ark did, and now I kind of like the bit in episode 7, I want to say, where he moonwalks like out of the pub. Like, early on I would probably have just seen that as Jamie, which would be equally as hilarious, you know, and it's like nice to think of my friend doing something funny. But like, I now see Ark as a more fully fleshed out person. And the same thing with Titus as well. I think I now picture Titus in when the singlet comes down and the bell sounds and he goes into rage, like all of those moments, I'm starting to differentiate them now from just someone I know as a real person and actually give more life to these fictional people.
I certainly have noticed, I don't know whether it happened as much, maybe I should go back and have a listen to the earlier episodes. I've noticed a lot more like of a unified front when it comes to doing stuff together. So like whether it be Jamie casting stuff to help our characters or me almost killing Amy's character by doing a medicine check or whatever, or sacrificing healing potions for other people in the team. I think it feels less like, oh, this is necessary because we need to complete this mission as a team, and more like, yeah, that's what you do if your mate was in trouble, sort of thing.
And the amount of times we look at Ark as well, I find it so funny because me and Titus are like, cool, Ark?
I love that because it's so true to real life. Like me and Jamie have played D&D for longer than both of you. Jamie is a player in the campaign, so you two kind of go like, Ark, what are we doing? Help! Ark, how do you feel about being the guy? Like we've kind of established you as the dad of the group anyway, but do you feel like you just fall into that role quite naturally?
Yeah, I think I do. I think I'm wearing a jumper right now, so definitely the dad of the group. It's got arm patches and everything.
Has it really?
So
Elbow patches.
Yeah, that's the one.
Oh,
for people listening to this podcast, it is a lovely maroon, isn't it? It's a very and
the nice collar.
Oh yeah, it looks kind of like a corduroy, but it's not. And then what colour patches are you rocking on there?
It's a heavy knit, thank you, and it's a brown patch.
Oh. So Jamie, just say heavy knit again.
Heavy knit.
Oh yes, okay. That's a real dad we got on the show, everybody, right there.
Yeah, I think he Ark very much sees himself as the dad of the group, and I think he's very happy to have a family around him in some ways. I think the interesting thing for Ark will be choosing his family or his newfound family, and that would be the interesting thing that happens in the future.
That's
because
really interesting.
To be honest, at the moment he's very much motivated to getting back by his family. Episode 6, where he has a chat with Aura Skarsgård, and just to try and get that kind of like to find out where his family is. And at the moment he's not really motivated by this quest, this prophecy. He doesn't really care about it. All he cares about is getting back to his family. And at the moment, he sees that he has to keep Mr. Miyamoto sweet because hopefully he'll get the intelligence so he can go back to his family.
If push comes to shove, just remember, Jamie, that I thought probably best not to attack the bounty hunter whilst you're stood right next to him. If you have to pick one of the two characters that are with you.
If we know who's getting sacrificed.
I just love that. And she was like, I'm sure this will be fine. And I was thinking, oh, Amy, I wouldn't have done that. He's got this situation dealt with. Come and pretend to be a tree with me.
Up there with Solid Snake. That was one of those moments where I did such a cool thing and then a completely idiotic thing like seconds later. Like that's just obviously the Russian roulette of my brain. I used the bear totem, which was a brilliant, even listening back to that, everyone's like, oh yeah, good move. And I'm like, thanks, boys, thanks. Put it down. Everyone gets advantage on their rolls. You get like a strength boost and stuff. And then, decided to use Ice Knife on an area of effect spell where my companion was standing. Like, how is that the same turn or the same, round of combat? Stupid.
And then moving swiftly on to the man, the myth, the legend, Titus dressing as a fucking tree.
Oh, man, that was so good.
What goes... I mean, you're obviously in a forest and you... I don't know what goes through Titus's mind at this point, and maybe you can shed some light on this, Adam, but what made you go, I'm going to be a tree?
Well, I was like, well, there's nothing I can do right now. Like, I can't get closer. I'm wide out in the open. And then I think Amy had hidden well before then and then was setting up for something. And I was like, I don't want to be the guy who just sort of goes, oh, I'm ready for an action for next go and then just end my turn. You want to always do something. And I suppose like when Amy says where her brain goes, my brain just always goes to like backflip. Just always wants to just do the most ridiculous thing. And I was like, And it also plays into our character because he thinks he's a rogue. He thinks he can pull shit like that off. And the fact that he could, oh yeah, see what happens. Roll the dice. Oh shit! Okay, guess he is. And then there's the sharing of the leaves subsequently with characters. I really want to fuck with our listeners and their mental visuals of what's going down. Okay, I think I've got the idea. Okay, there's a bounty hunter in the distance. Sorry? 7 foot tall and he can't see him. Okay.
You just rolled so well. And that's not like you, Adam, to ever roll really well.
This is the antithesis. No, I roll well in battle, and this is a continuation from the first few episodes. Horrifically, I cannot roll when it comes to visions or anything like that. Ollie inevitably will have page upon page upon page of scenarios that my character's in, and he just fucking falls straight out the ring, or his arm falls off, or whatever it may be. Honestly, for the next few episodes, just have like one thing that's going to happen to my character, because I'm inevitably going to get like less than a 6 on that whenever I roll next, because it's a blessing and a curse. I mean, to be honest, aside from nearly dying in the last episode, I'd rather it be this way round. Like, I'd rather be better in battle, but it's fucking annoying when, like, it's fascinating to listen to you guys going on all these emotional journeys, but when it's like, okay, my turn, 5 minutes goes by and I'm just back there just with my eyes shut again listening to your guys' stories. It's great to listen to, but I feel like, I've ruined everything, not just for the listeners, but for Ollie and for you two as well.
To defend you, Adam, like he is picking like wisdom checks, and me and Amy's characters are very wisdom based, so we are going to get further in the visions than you are. It's like whenever I have something that's just like strength. First strength saving throw, I think it was episode 2 when I was been put into put my seatbelt on. I got a nat 1, and I couldn't add anything to it. So I was like, anything strength based, I'm done for.
And
you definitely got to know your strengths, haven't you?
And it does all vary from character to character. And I think Titus has just been lucky at this point, because you're finding out about some otherworldly force, which is not going to be a strength-based monster or creature or something like that. It is going to be wisdom or intelligence and charisma. And I know from the get-go with all of this that Jamie is going to be so OP in all of his like saving throws that he does with this stuff, because I'm like, oh fuck, I need to like plan an encounter where Jamie's going to get fucked over, and every single time he turns out to be this OP fucking character who can just destroy a bounty hunter like so easily.
I think I made that joke in one of the episodes about how OP Jamie is, and we're so here for it. Yeah, Drew, that was it. Drew Mark is OP. He really is.
I realised, like, my character is clearly heavily influenced by Drax from Guardians of the Galaxy. But I've got this horrible premonition that it's the start of the second film, isn't it? Remember when he gets swallowed by the thing and he's just inside it, just stabbing it with, and he thinks he's like, that's going to be the real difference maker. I feel like that's what's going to happen. You two are going to be casting these spells and doing all that, and I'll just be shivving it in the ribs going, don't worry, I'm playing my part here. And you're like, cool, so that takes like 4 HP off it, and then still got 1 million, so probably need to do some more creative things here. And I'm like, stab it some more.
That's if you start rolling well, because if you start rolling well in combat, that stuff will happen. And actually, talking of rolling really well, at the start of episode 5, I believe, at the start of episode 6, where you're falling from the Ugean South Shore barracks, and the giant octopus that is your pal Squiddy gets a nat 20 to pluck you all out of the sky. Amazing moment.
You don't fuck with Squiddy.
You don't fuck with Squiddy. No. You just don't. But do you... I want to know from each and every single one of you what you really think. Like, do you genuinely think that Squiddy is dead?
Until I see a body, there's no doubt in my mind that Squiddy's still alive. As I pointed out, I can't remember, was it the same episode or the subsequent one? But when they were basically saying, like, oh, Planewalker's still knocking about, I was like, well, if Planewalker's still knocking about, then guess Squiddy's still knocking about. Not considering there could be other Planewalkers and things like that. But, I mean, if it does emerge that it's all over for Squiddy, what a way to go.
A hero's death, you know.
At the bottom of the cliff, exploded by a catastrophic beam while he fights this massive metallic lizard to death. Yeah, it's how I'd want to go out.
Aura did say, didn't she, like nothing could survive that blast. So, you know, you've got that hint, but then I'm a little bit like Adam. I feel like it's a bit Game of Thrones. If you don't see someone die on screen, they could totally still be alive. It's, yeah, I mean, not that you had the option really, Ollie, but, you know, I'm sure you would have, like, you know, had like a sushi chef hack him up in front of us if you could have done, because that was the turning point where Ollie R.R. Martin came out to play.
Yeah.
Is that the episode where Adam coins me that author? I can't remember if it's that one or not.
I think it was the next episode's intro.
It was the intro to the next episode, yeah.
That was it, because it was part of your intro rhyme. That's it.
It was, yeah, because it was the end of episode 6 when you shot me. So yeah, that was it.
I do love that. It wasn't me. It was a bounty hunter, but no, it really was me. I shot you. So yeah,
we're just there, like plotting along really nicely, and you just sort of get wrapped up in it all. And I personally, you lose track of time and what have you. And it's just like that's the end, but also someone's been shot. See you next time. And I get it. All the best TV shows leave you on like cliffhangers and stuff, but I was like, whoa, I'm on the inside of this. I wasn't fucking expecting this to go down.
The outrage from us at the end as well is so funny.
The outpouring, like
the shouting, I really like the off-mic shouting.
Yeah. And the fact that like Ollie tries to wrap it up and we're all like, no.
I refuse.
Even after the end when I've said bye guys and Adam's like, no, I'm not having this. Jamie, do you think that Squiddy is dead?
I think he is. I think you need to have. Well, this is me DM slaying. I think you need to have stakes. I think people need to die, unfortunately. But I've got a plan. If I get to 9th level, how I bring him back. So if I get 9th level spells, I can bring him back.
Do tell.
No, I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to tell you.
You're not going
to have it there ready to go.
You're not going to divulge.
I'm going to start collecting random things that I need for the spell, just without telling you what they are.
Looking slightly ahead, actually, to a theme that is common, I think, throughout a few episodes. I think one reason, Ark has his right to be wary of Aura Scalesguard, and then your utter distrust of an ally in the latest episode, which Amy points out very clearly. But what was all the distrust? Like, where did that all come from so suddenly? It's like you've been told to go and find this person. This person introduces themselves to you, and then you're like, Mr. Moto Hirokoshi wants you to go on a date with somebody. Where did all of that come from?
Well, she was French, then she wasn't. It was a lot to unpack, We were very distrusting of her for good reason.
I agree, absolutely. Madame Morgana, Mystic Helena. What is she doing?
Yeah.
If anything,
exactly.
I think that that electric engineer is probably a bit too good for her. I think. I think we should have. I think we should have kept looking. We should have like scoured the Sericlean coast just to find a beauty that can match engineer guy.
We rock back up at the shop to get our holocard, and we're like, okay, so we couldn't get you Mystic Helena, but we've got you the next best thing. Feast your eyes on this, and it's tight as an address. What are we thinking?
The door opens, the bell on the shop rings, doves fly out from behind him, and sunlight turns his silhouette, this muscular silhouette, and this olive-skinned gentleman at this table just goes, and swoons as he walks in.
That was a really fun bit I liked, of the fact that Titus did not cotton on quickly whatsoever, that you did not need to speak French to speak to Madame Morgana.
Je m'appelle Titus.
Oué, la blackberry mead.
Yeah, the start of the next episode will open with you all slumped over a table, bloodied and bleeding, with like these used rags that she's got no more of, and just like pint glasses of blackberry mead everywhere. Like, I think in total you all had 8 pints while these whole visions were going on. And it's interesting for me because knowing a little bit about the backstory of Zakaya, she is a drinker and has not drunk for some time. And Amy, I honestly didn't think I was going to make you roll like Constitution saving throws. I was like, she's frequented bars before and been like quite a heavy drinker in the 5 years that you've been traveling around this solar system. But it being 4 days and you not having had a drink, it's like, I need to make you roll this, and you can't not get away with this.
Absolutely. And I think that's the thing as well, like I was saying, that like immaturity is not going to know one's limits. So she's probably just going to go and have all the blackberry mead, especially if she's just seen, these two emerge with blood pouring from the eyes and this Helena lady with her eyes rolled back in her head. Like, anyone would need a drink. I'd need a stiff one if I was going to go into that scenario. So, yeah, no, definitely. And I think it worked well. I mean, going into that whole mind shadow thing, to have that bit of at stake as well.
Oh, yeah, of course, because you were...
And then there was the blessing, wasn't there, from Ark?
Oh yeah, the very late blessing that never happened in anybody else's vision. It was just like episodes before. It was Jamie going, "I'm a cleric. Get used to me saying, and you're blessed."
The annoying thing was, when I was having the vision, I asked how far they were away from me because I wanted to bless them there in the vision. And then I completely forgot about it for Adams, and then suddenly went, "Oh God, I could probably bless him."
I bless Mystic Helena. I bless the bartender, and Tyler's just like, "What?"
What was the moment when you were growing up where you were like, "I'm going to see how much I can drink right now," and then that informed the character? Because I remember distinctly going to a mate's 17th birthday party and deciding that was the night I was going to see if I like lager and Guinness and gin, and then subsequently ended up vomiting on his parents' rose garden and burning them all.
Oh, God,
what was that like for you in real life?
Mine was 17
Jesus.
as well. Mine was 17. It was a mate's 18th, and we were all in the lower years, and it was like a party in the back garden, and I decided that I was like, I've had a bit of cider, I like a bit of lager, but what are all these spirits? What's all this? Like absinthe, vodka, like what? Apple sours? Go on then. And then, of course, it all ended up in the barrel of a garden barbecue, like, the ones that you just flip the lid on. Was just me opening the drawer and going inside it and completely filling it up. It's got the holes on the bottom, the underside of it, just watching it all pour out of the bottom. That was the night where I was like, that was the night where I was like, oh, I can't drink everything under the sun.
Yeah, it's a valuable life lesson when you learn it, isn't it? And you're just like, wow, okay, because you think you're indestructible. You're just like, okay, cool, I'll just mix everything together. No. What part of each other's backstories are you most intrigued by? Like, what's the thing that, if you think about a TV series, what's that burning question that's making you watch the next episode because you have to know the answer? And for me, with Titus, it's Zalu. I am really keen to know more about Zalu because it's never really directly explained as to whether you are dating or whether, like, it's obviously not an unrequited love. We get that whole thing where Volok, whose accent I love because he sounds like one of Bob Mortimer's like Athletico Mints characters. I can't think which one it is, but he's so funny. But he's texting her, isn't he? And she's like, bog off, mate, I'm into someone else. So you get the impression that there's like something going on there, but I want to know how deeply involved they were. I want to know where she is now. I'm a sucker for a good romance, hence the old orc situation. So I really want to know more about Zalu and like her relationship with Titus. And then the biggest burning thing for Ark is just the unanswered question of, it's been 3 months and no one's heard from Colonel Alec. No one's heard from Alec or the Ara Cochrans in general. So what's happened? Why the radio silence? They're the two biggest things for me that I'm eager to know more about.
Can I just say I don't know why there's radio silence either. Just so you know.
Oh,
Not
that's really cool, Jamie.
Not a clue.
That's really cool.
I'm absolutely here for Zalu as well. I want to know what that relationship is, and that's a really cool thing. So I just want to see where that is. And for Amy, I want to know about Zach's real parents, because you are half elf. Am I right? What's that all about? That's a really where did you come from? I'm really interested in that.
Yeah, and that hasn't been actually touched upon at all really yet, because it's all been about her adoptive parents. So yeah, I'm excited to sort of I've given Ollie the foundation for that, and I want to see where that can go. But yeah,
I think to sort of circle back to what we spoke about earlier, the sort of potential reunion of our group with Jamie's family is fascinating to me, and you know the fallout from what we've heard about in these visions or dreams or flashbacks or whatever you want to call them is great. Really want to know how you lost that arm, Amy. Really
I was waiting for it.
I was trying to think of a really smart answer, and I was just like, nope, still the arm thing from Hot Tub Time Machine. Still that.
I can't believe we got a reference in there for Hot Tub Time Machine. I was
so
looking
good.
back.
So good.
Honestly, I tell you what, one thing that's really stung out to me when I've been re-listening to the whole series so far is the diversity of the references that we pull out. Because obviously, being a massive geek, I'm forever referencing Final Fantasy or Assassin's Creed or something. But Adam gets in Hot Tub Time Machine a reference to WAP. There is literally a bit where he sits on a guy and he's like, if he eats ass, he's a bottom feeder.
That was one of my most listened to songs last year, and I'm putting it down to research now. That's what I'm officially calling that.
So yeah, Megan Thee Stallion got in there, and Ocean's 11 at one point as well. There was so many just complete, and then obviously all the vines. So...
I was going to say, when are we getting to the Vines bit? Because that is something that has spilled out. It used to be that our WhatsApp group was all business, and now it's just like, hey guys, remember, look at all those chickens.
You're so right about the business part. It was like, when are we free? What time are we ready to record on this day? Hey guys, here's a bit of law that you need to know.
Nice rhyme. Oh, I sneezed. I'm not allowed to sneeze.
Whoever threw that paper, your mom's a hoe.
Fuck your chicken strips. So I think you guys have been incredibly lucky not to have died so far. I thought Titus was dead on the ship on the first episode when those 5 guards all stabbed into him, and then the wisdom checks failed and you were trying to get away and that didn't happen. I thought...
No, I tell you, the only time I did roll well, wasn't that the one where Jamie was like, okay, I'm going to take control of your character, and I was like, surprise, bitch, 920 or whatever it is. My favourite moment still out of 8 episodes is Amy going to the loo and coming back to discover she's killed 50 people.
I thought you were winding me up. I really thought you guys were winding me up. I was like, oh, I'm dead then. Last time I go for a slash, but wow.
I think my favourite moment so far was when we were falling from... so we did that big leap into the ocean, and just that end of that episode I thought was so cool. I thought it was great. I really enjoyed that one.
Falling towards the Seraclean Ocean and seeing this, the god of death, Shinigami, in the waves and all that kind of stuff.
What I loved is how you described it as well. You're like, oh, ocean, sky, we were spinning. I thought it was a really kind of great bit of DMing and storytelling there. What is the part of your own backstory you want to explore? I can tell you mine if that helps. So
that's a really good. I was waiting for
that's a great question.
Such a good question.
Ark is like a war hero. Well, not a war hero, but he's been involved in a few battles, especially with Alec. And I really want to explore some of the battles that they've been a part of together. So I've been basically, Ollie said, give me 3 battle names and 3 quick descriptions of battles, and he'll do the rest. So I'm excited to. I've got a few names, I've got names of battles, but I haven't put descriptions in yet. I've got one that's called the Battle of the Astral Sea. Ooh. But I'm really excited to go through those and figure out what actually happens in them.
And flesh out some more of your backstory so you can bring that to the table. That's very cool.
Because I'm excited because Alec is a very super capable, amazing soldier, better than R.I.P, better than probably a lot of Aarakocrans out there. So I think it'd be really interesting to find out how that dynamic works.
Yeah, because she's a badass queen. Like, well, from what we've seen so far, she's really cool.
I'm buzzing about my eventual showdown with Volok. Like, I'm looking forward to that eventually. But me and Ollie have been talking about the more of the history with Volok and the fact that, you know, we've seen elements of that in Visions and what have you, but there's certainly moments that I want to go back and revisit, and the catalyst to all this, the driving force, not just behind my feud with Volok, but this whole mission that I'm on. But I think also, where the bloody hell's my manager, Elmin Monroe? And like, what was I don't know why I've been officially charged with like match fixing or whatever it is, but then that's not the case. I know in my heart of hearts, my character and Elmin wouldn't be behind that. So what's going on there? Basically, just the thing that got me into the position where I was in episode 1, basically.
Yeah, the thing that started it all off with you guys on the prison ship. You know, you're in the lower leagues of wrestling, which you gave an acronym for it, but I can't remember what it was, but it was so perfect. It was like RW something, a regional wrestling something. And yeah, you've been, since you've left the GWF, you've been traveling around, putting on shows, doing what your character does best, which is entertain a crowd, wrestle, you know, for much smaller venues, and your manager has been there this whole time, and suddenly, gone. Just 10 years of your life together, ups and vanished.
I think for me, Jamie hit the nail on the head. It's the parents. You know, it's Zach's origin story. Like, what was the union? Because it is so unusual for like elves to kind of what's the word, like to involve themselves so intimately with humans. You know, they're quite a very, very proud race. And
to fuck,
you know,
you mean to fuck other races?
Yeah, basically.
Right.
Like, I want to.
Okay.
If you don't include a bit where Zach's dad bangs Zach's mom, I will be so disappointed. No, I want to know like about her mum and dad and how that came. I mean, I've given you enough ammo to kind of get there, but yeah, I want to know more about that and you know, whether they're still out there. Could they be dead? Could they be alive?
Look forward to an hour and a half of me narrating a sex scene, everybody. Let's go.
Brilliant. I mean, boners pop up in your storytelling left, right, and centre anyway.
They do.
So.
I've talked about boners. I've sung a lullaby down a microphone for this podcast. So why wouldn't there be a sex scene that I would eventually narrate from start to finish?
Going back to the lullaby, I listened to this again, obviously, when we listened to the whole series again. That song, when I first listened to it, I think because the melody is so soothing and Zach's mum is just so incredibly, like, Bristolian, and it was really, really nice and tender and gentle. And then I listened to the
butter sprout.
Yeah, and then I listened to the lyrics and I was like, oh my God, the lyrics of that song are literally just like, and if your wit won't help you out, smash them in the fucking face. Like, one of the lyrics is literally just like, give them a smack, give them a sting or something. I was like, oh, wow.
Well, it's all the old school, like, nursery rhymes that you hear, and, you know, like, ring around a rose. It's like, that's about the plague.
The plague, yeah, totally.
Sorry, just not to go off topic here, but I was thinking about that and thinking about, like, children's nursery rhymes, and I was like, oh, yeah, Jack and Jill went up the hill to fetch a pail of water. Jack fell down and broke his crown, and Jill came tumbling after, right? Which obviously, it reminds me of the classic Ricky Gervais stand-up when he's like, I mean, his cranium, I thought his fucking hat fell off, right? But I've also discovered does anyone know the next verse of that song, Jamie, as a parent? Do you know the next verse of that song?
No, I got told off at my NCT group, which is a group for when you're preparing to get, give birth, you go to these groups of parents. I used to sing to Delphine a lot of Jay-Z, and I got told off because that's it's not appropriate.
99 problems, but birthday one.
Hit me.
Chicka what?
The only reason I ask is that the next set of lyrics has come up here. Jack got up and home did trot as fast as he could caper. To old Dame Dob, who patched his knob with vinegar and brown paper. What the fuck's this?
Fucking hell. God, that's a revelation, isn't it? Wow. I mean, I only realised the other day there's more than one verse to Hitler has only got one ball. Like, I didn't realise that was a thing.
Is it not just in the Albert Hall and that's the song?
Well, that's where I get to. I get to where it was in the Albert Hall, and then Leo carried on singing for eternity. And I was just like, what? What's going on here?
What do the lyrics carry on like? Are they amazingly
Wait,
bad?
so you got Hitler has only got one ball, the other is in the Albert Hall with his mother, the dirty bugger.
Chopped it off when he was small.
She was.
Okay.
She threw it into the deep blue
Oh, there we
sea.
go.
The fishers thought it was time for tea. The fishers took out the dishes and had his Hitler's ball on toast for tea. Is that it?
I thought.
I remember that. Yeah.
I thought it's scallops and bollocks for tea.
Yes, scallops and bollocks for tea.
Scallops
That's the one
and
I've got.
bollocks for tea, yeah. Oh, wow, it goes into all the German officers, Goebbels and Goring.
Well, if I'm honest,
I need to rewatch World War II in colour on Netflix.
I think we'll wrap the podcast up there, shall we? Before we get onto the Third Reich anymore. That about wraps this episode up of No Dice. Thank you once again to my players Jamie, Amy, and Adam for taking us on a tour of what has been, as we look forward to what's to come on Dice with Death. If there's one thing I want you to do right now, it's subscribe to this podcast for all the latest adventures with Ark, Zakiah, and Titus. Rate us 5 stars because it really helps us out. And leave a review too with your 5 stars. That'd be great. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Jamie, I'm going to get this right now. Dice Death Pod. Is that right? Dice Death Pod.
You set up the social media.
I know.
So I don't know why you're asking.
I know. That's why I ask you. See, you're my dad of the group. There you go.
I'm going to check it
always
now.
check
I've got
it.
Twitter open.
Dice
I'm going to check it
Death
now.
Pod. Follow us on there on Twitter and Instagram. And we'll see you next week for another episode of the Dice with Death podcast. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bum,
Bum, bum, bum, bum, bum.
And scallops and bollocks for tea. Remix.